Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Angelica Diaz Naranjo, and I am the interim supervisor of child welfare and attendance. We are here today, this evening, for our Schools of Choice parent information meeting. And I would like to briefly introduce the team that I have here that you are able to see. I have, maybe if you ladies want to unmute and quickly introduce yourselves before we get started.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Melinda Ortiz. I'm the Director of School Services, and I'm very happy that you are with us this evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nancy Romero, and I'm the Interim Coordinator for Child Welfare and Attendance, overseeing pupil support and attendance. Thanks for joining us today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Freitas, and I'm the Secretary for Child Welfare and Attendance.
Good evening. My name is Estella Ortega, and I'm the Secretary also in the Child Welfare and Attendance Department.
Also present in our meeting, we have our Communications Officer, Mr. Scott Smith. And we also have our Superintendent here with us this evening. Thank you, Dr. Mary Sue, for joining us. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay. This is just if Spanish translation is necessary. You can dial in to the phone number on the screen and the extension, and you will have access to the presentation in Spanish. Para traducción en español, pueden llamar al número de teléfono que está en la pantalla y utilizar la extensión para poder escuchar la presentación en español a través de su teléfono móvil. So we'll give everyone a few seconds to do this. Okay. For questions and answers, I would like to ask you to please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can type them in here. And as we approach the end of the meeting, we will go through and answer the questions, as well as throughout the meeting, your questions may be answered by the ladies that we have here present. So just if you have any questions, go ahead and use the Q&A feature. In addition, we are recording this presentation and we will be posting it on our ABCUSD website for you to reference in the future as well. I would like to go ahead and give you all background information as to how Schools of Choice open enrollment established in our district. We created a board advisory committee to discuss this topic, and out of this, the committee developed and recommended to the board the revised board policy and administrative regulation 5116.1, which you have access to through our ABCUSD website. And I'll go over with you what that board policy and administrative regulation looks like, because it is our Schools of Choice process. Part of that board policy describes our enrollment priorities. Students identified for priority enrollment are placed in schools on a case-by-case basis, and I will review what that means. So here, as it reads on the screen, students identified for priority enrollment are placed in schools on a case-by-case basis and may not be subject to a random, unbiased selection process to determine who shall be admitted. And so these are the categories for the reasons why students may be placed in in a different school. And so you can look at detailed information as to what is defined for these students, depending on the situation. You can look at board policy and review what this means. But for these different reasons, students may be moved to a different school depending on their needs for each of these categories. So we just wanted to include this information because it is part of our open enrollment process. And we move into our Schools of Choice, our intra-district open enrollment. For applications for open enrollment, we call this our School of Choice, shall be subject to a random unbiased selection process. This is our lottery to determine which applicant shall be admitted into their School of Choice. And so we go into what we call our Schools of Choice application rankings. These are our priorities. So depending on what category your student may fall into, you're prioritized with the number 1 through 8. And this number, this type of ranking is significant in the lottery, right? So if you're ranked number 1, then your priority is higher because you are a resident student. You have a sibling applicant. And your sibling is continuing in the same school that you are applying into. So we give priority based on sibling, based on resident status, a continuing student, etc. So that is ranking number 1. A ranking of 2 are students who reside within ABC Unified School District, including students who are in specialized programs, and this is pending availability at the school site. So that's specific. Priority 1 and 2 is specific to our resident students that live within ABCUSD boundaries. We move on now to priorities 3 and 4. These are students of permanent ABC employees. A ranking of 3 is a sibling applicant of a student who will continue attending the school in which the applicant is applying for. So the key item here is that there's a sibling in the same school where the student is applying to for schools of choice. And that these children are children of permanent ABC employees. A ranking of 4 is a continuing student who is transitioning to 7th or 9th grade. So making the transition from elementary school to middle school or from middle school to high school. And they have been a student in our district as well. We then move on to categories 5 and 6. These are inter-district permits. An inter-district permit is a permit for a student that is living outside of ABC Unified School District. So you are requesting a permit to attend ABC Unified School District. You initiate that process with your district of residence. They have a procedure for that. And then you would complete that procedure by bringing the documentation to ABC Unified School District. So for a ranking of 5, this is a sibling applicant of students who will continue attending the school in which the applicant is applying. And a ranking of 6 is continuing students who are transitioning to 7th or 9th grade. I do want to make sure that you are aware that if there is a transition from elementary to middle or from middle to high school, you will need to request a new inter-district permit with your district of residence. And the last 2 categories, a ranking of 7 and 8, are for new students, so completely new students to our district. A ranking of 7 is students of permanent ABC employees. And then the number, a ranking of 8 are students that are new to our district and they're coming in with an inter-district permit. So in order for us to better understand the ranking, schools of choice ranking, we wanted to provide you with a few scenarios to give you an idea of where these students would be placed. So I'll go through each scenario and then and notify you why they would fall in that certain category or that ranking. Robert is a 2nd grade student attending Aloha Elementary School on schools of choice. In the fall of the 2022-23 school year, Robert will continue at Aloha as a 3rd grader. Robert's younger sister, Kimberly, will start kindergarten in the fall of 2022-23 school year. Their parents will submit a school of choice application for Kimberly to begin kindergarten at Aloha. So the key items here is that Kimberly is a sibling applicant. Her brother Robert is a continuing student at Aloha on school of choice, and they are residents of ABC Unified School District. So this child would receive a ranking of number 1. So that would be their priority ranking. Scenario number 2. We have Bill's father, who is a permanent employee in ABC and a resident of Whittier School District. So Bill is completing grade 6 at Whitman Elementary School and wants to attend Ross Academy of Creative and Media Arts. So here we have a student who is on an inter-district permit. So their district of residence is Whittier. and they are a child of a permanent ABC Unified School District employee. So for these different reasons, Bill would fall under ranking number 4 because he is transitioning from elementary to middle school on a permit, and he is a child or a student of an ABC employee. And the last scenario is the Lee family who lives in Paramount and wants their son, David, a new student, to begin kindergarten in ABC. The Lees attended the Magnet Fair and submitted an application for Elliott Elementary School. So because David is a completely new student to ABC Unified School District, he would need to apply with an inter-district permit, and he would be ranked at number 8 because he's never attended ABC, there are no siblings, and he is requesting an inter-district permit from Paramount Unified School District to attend ABC. I want to walk you through key features of the School of Choice application, especially for those families who are new and are doing this process for the first time. This is what the application is going to look like. In the application, you're going to be asked a few questions with regards to information about your child, information about parents, address. So address is going to be really important, and it will help identify residency status. In the application, you will also be asked if you are residing outside of the ABC Unified School District boundaries to include a copy of your inter-district permit. So I know that districts run in different timelines. It would be right now a perfect time to contact your district of residence and find out what is the process to request an inter-district permit, and if you can start that now, so that when the application window opens on March 1st, you are ready to complete your application and include that information in the application. We will definitely work with you. If it takes you a little longer to get access to those documents, just make sure that you contact CWA. The key thing here is to have those forms readily available once you are notified of your school of choice status. If you get accepted to any of your schools of choice and you're applying to attend and you're in the process of enrolling your child, you definitely want to have that inter-district permit cleared. So this is what the student information section looks like. We move on to sibling information. So in this category, we definitely need to make sure that if there are any siblings, you want to include their information. One of the important items, and a lot of times we get phone calls regarding student ID numbers. So just make sure that you're checking with your kids, with your current schools, within ABC, if your child is attending an ABC school, that you gather their student ID numbers. That's probably one of the questions that we get the most in our office. So as we talked about in the rankings, you have to make sure that if you are selecting a school, the priorities or the ranking is different for siblings. We have to make sure that siblings are attending or continuing to attend the school that your new applicant or your new student is applying for. So that's the key thing here. So then we go on to the section where you actually get to select your schools. You get to select up to 4 schools, and you want to select them by priority. So you want to put your first choice as number 1, your second choice as number 2, and so forth, right? A lot of times we get asked if you have to select 4 schools. That's not the case. You may select up to 4. If you select less than 4, that's fine. Just make sure that you are prioritizing your schools. Many times too, we want to remind parents and families that you want to include schools that you are really interested in for your child. Schools that have the programs that you want your child to be a part of, whether that is a magnet school, you want to make sure that you include those schools. But it is not a requirement to select the 4 schools. That is totally up to you. I also want to make sure that you're aware that Whitney and Tracy are not part of the schools of choice process. And in addition to that, if you have a student in one of our transitional kindergarten programs, TK is not part of the schools of choice process. And if you happen to be in a TK program in a school because your home school, let's say for an ABC resident, doesn't have a TK program, and you really like the school where your child was placed for TK, next year, when they are entering kindergarten, you are recommended to apply for schools of choice if you would like them to remain in that same school. Okay, if you don't apply for schools of choice, then you will be redirected to your home school, depending on your address. Okay, so I just want to review with you the school of choice process and timeline. There are key dates that we will discuss, but prior to that, I want to remind you that on our school of choice website within the ABC School District website, we will include the available spaces at each of our sites, and that information will be available for you to review as we get closer to March 1st. That way, you can take into account space availability at the school sites and determine which schools you are wanting to apply to. So we will have that posted on our website in a couple weeks. In terms of space availability and your chances of getting into your schools of choice, it really depends on a few factors. We look at number of teachers at our school sites, we look at classroom sizes and number of students. And with all that information gathered together, we're able to produce the available space at each of our sites. So this is something that we take into account. We inform the community of the number of spaces so that you make the decision when it comes to applying for your schools of choice. This is what it will look like. This is for a previous year, but this is just a sample of what that information will look like on our website. You'll know the spaces available for each school site and by grade level. Okay, and this is what our timeline looks like. Our application window opens from March 1st through the 31st. It closes on March 1st, it closes on March 31st at 2 p.m. I just want to remind everyone that we are offering support. If you need assistance with the application, you can definitely contact your home school and they can assist you with the school of choice application. If you need further assistance or if you're applying for an inter-district permit, you can contact the district office, the Child Welfare and Attendance Department. Will schedule with you a time for you to come in during the application window so that we can offer you support with your application. Once the application window closes, we then go into during the month of April, we go in, we make sure that all documents were submitted, we verify information, sibling information, and all of that is taken care of. May 1st, it falls on a weekend, so we will actually begin sending out notifications for school of choice status starting April 29th, and that is a Friday. And so that is when we will begin to notify you of school of choice status. There are 3 possible outcomes, and it's just really important to be aware of this and to be continuously checking your emails. The email account that you use for your application is where a lot of the communication is going to be provided to you. So again, there are 3 possibilities. You may be notified that you have gained acceptance to your school of choice. And when you receive that notification, you have 48 hours to accept your school of choice. If you are waitlisted for your first choice, then you will proceed on to your second choice and so forth. And you'll get those offers to you all through the month of May, from May 2nd through May 31st. And again, you're just encouraged to continuously check your email for those notifications, and you have up to 48 hours to accept. By June 1st, the school of choice process ends. And if you did not receive your school of choice, you will be notified of that. And you will also be notified that the school of choice has ended and you're going to be redirected to your home school. You can always try the next school year to apply for school of choice, and we do encourage that. And then, and that is what our school of choice process looks like. So it's pretty lengthy, but we will be communicating with you throughout the process. And you can always contact CWA if you have any questions with regards to the application or your child's school of choice status as well. I want to move on to intra-district permits because I want to provide you with clarified information with regards to what is an intra-district permit, because it is quite different to school of choice. I also want to remind you that there is no appeal process for school of choice. So once it ends on June 1st, that process is over. And we continue until the next year. You have the opportunity to reapply for school of choice. But the intra-district permit request process is quite different. As it reads here, after June 1st, parents residing in ABC may apply for an intra-district permit to move their child to a district school due to childcare for elementary age students. Intra-district permit requests due to special medical or social adjustment, for example, safety, requires supporting documentation from a properly licensed or registered professional. All requests are reviewed by the school site principal, and this is from your home school, and then the decision shall be rendered to grant or deny the permit. So typically an intra-district is a decision that's made from principal to principal, and only for these reasons that I mentioned. There is an appeal process. You have to keep in mind that intra-district requests are really dependent on space availability. And so that is something that, that we inform you of when you make the request. And if you decide to appeal, there is a process for that. And it would go through the Child Welfare and Attendance Office. I want to inform you that we do have resources on our website. We have information guides in a variety of languages. We will also be including this video recording on the website, and we also have a school of choice information video in English and Spanish that walks you through the school of choice application. It's a very brief video that kind of guides you through what the application looks like. In addition to that, you can find information on the ABC Unified School District website in the schools. They also have these pamphlets printed so that you can request information and have it with you. And we've also done a few information meetings through magnet schools, as well as our Hispanic, Latino, and Black family circles as well. We will be communicating with you once you are submitted an application or going through the process of submitting the application for school of choice via email, and sending consistent emails just to make sure that you're aware that the application window is closing, and then informing you of your child's school of choice status. And so this concludes our presentation, and we're now going to see if there are any questions and answers. This would be your opportunity to submit any of those. If you have any questions, make sure that you're using the Q&A feature. I do see that a few of you have raised your hands. It is best if you use the Q&A feature so that we can see your questions.
Angelica, there are some questions in there. I know that your team is busy answering them, but if you'd like, I could start reading some of them off to you.
Yes, that'd be perfect.
Like to address those? Okay. I'll try to pick ones that are not being answered currently by your team. One question is, if it's a lottery, how do the priority levels play into the random selection? That's just part of the weighting process, I believe. When the lottery company runs the actual lottery, the weighting helps with the lottery.
Is the question about our ranking, our priorities?
Ranking priorities and how that plays into the lottery. So you could go ahead and. So
the lottery is unbiased, but it takes into account a few factors. Like I mentioned, space availability at our school sites, classroom sizes, number of teachers. Those numbers factor into how many spaces we will have available. The school of choice application ranking, these priorities do play a factor in that lottery, because if you have a ranking of 1, then you have a higher priority in the lottery. So the likelihood of you getting into your school of choice is higher because of the ranking that you have. And it is, again, how it is described here, taking into account sibling status, resident, continuing student, inter-district permit. So it takes into account all of these different categories. And so that is the answer for that.
Terrific, thank you. Now, if somebody doesn't have an inter-district permit yet, can they still begin the application process?
Absolutely. They can definitely begin the application when the window opens. We do encourage you to reach out to your district of residence now to find out what that process looks like, because like I said, every district runs in a different timeline. So you just want to see if you can make that request now, and that way you can have that permit ready for when you are applying. But if you don't, that is okay. Just make sure that you're contacting Child Welfare and Attendance so that we can help you with that process.
Mr. Smith, do you mind if I just share one of the questions that's coming up frequently is if they accept choice number 2, what happens to choice number 1?
So you will list your schools in priority. So your first choice will be the school that you really want to go to. You will only be offered choice number 2 or 3 if you are not offered choice number 1. So if you're waitlisted for choice number 1, you will be offered 2 or 3 depending on space availability and whether or not you got into that school. So it'll just be dependent on which school you're able to get into. Hopefully that answers that question.
And so they're wondering if they lose their spot at school number 1. So I accept school number 2.
Yes. So if you accept school number 2, let's say you're waitlisted for school number 1 and you got in you receive a notification that there's a spot for you in school number 2 and you accept it within 48 hours, you are now accepting that offer. And so you lose your status or your waitlist status for school number 1.
Another popular question, sorry, Mel, was when will this link be available? Is it through Aries or how do we apply?
So if you go to the ABC Unified School District website, you will then search for schools of choice. And in that web page, you will see apply here. And it's a separate site. So it'll direct you to a separate site where you will complete the application. And again, it doesn't open until March 1st. So if you try to do it now, it'll notify you that the current window is closed. So just make sure that you put on your calendars March 1st.
We have a question from Mr. Martinez. What time will the school of choice process be available on March 1st? And the reason why I wanted to respond to this is because typically that question is asked thinking that the sooner you get your application and the further, the more chance you have of getting in. You could apply at the moment it opens, and you can apply one moment before it closes, and it's not going to make any difference. In fact, we encourage our families to participate in the magnet, the school tours, and we just had a magnet fair last week to see some of our schools before you submit your application, as you may find that you're interested in another site. You may be intending one and realize that there are other schools in our district that you're interested in. So there's not a rush to get your application submitted. The most important thing is that prior to it closing, and I believe it's 2 o'clock on March 31st, you absolutely do want to make sure that your application is in and it is complete. Mr. Smith, do you have a few more questions for us?
Certainly. And I've seen that there's a couple questions like this. If a family has a student attending ABC schools in TK, do they need to apply for schools of choice for kindergarten? And if so, will they have to again apply after that?
So I can take that one. Transitional kindergarten at this time is a program that is run through the district office, since we do not have transitional kindergarten at every one of our schools. So the application to apply for transitional kindergarten is now open. And if you're in kindergarten and you want to remain at the school that you are in, and it is not your resident school, you must apply for school of choice to remain there, or you will be returning back to your school of residence. If you came in on a permit into transitional kindergarten and you want to remain in ABC for kindergarten, then again, you should apply for school of choice for the school that you would like your child to attend in kindergarten.
And so I also want to add on that once you gain school of choice status, let's say you're applying for your kindergartner and your kindergartner gets school of choice, you will remain in that school for the remainder of elementary school, unless you opt to change to a different school. Let's say you like another magnet school, then you would apply for schools of choice the year prior you're making the change. So you'll remain there for elementary school, and then you would have to reapply for school of choice as they transition from elementary to middle and from middle to high school. So whenever there's a change of school is when you have to apply for school of choice.
I have another question, and this comes up every year. I have twins who will be attending kindergarten. What is the lottery process like for them? We live in ABC. So your twins will still get the ranking of a resident student. And if one student gets in, the other student would need to get in also the first time. However, the second time, if one student gets in, that sibling is attending the school, and the second sibling has another chance to get in, or a better chance to get in, because the sibling is already attending the school. Of course, we always hope that in the lottery, both of your children would be pulled for the same school site, but it is a lottery and there is a very good chance that they won't. So it's really important that parents of twins understand that it is quite possible that one will get in and one won't, and you will be placed in a decision. You'll have a decision to make, whether you're going to accept and have them at different schools or choose to refuse the lottery process and stay at your home school. There's also an opportunity if there are openings available after the lottery closes and we've placed through our lottery, if there are still openings available at the other school site and you're on an inter-district permit, that something may be able to happen, but that's well down the road. So please, it's best to go into it thinking that if you have twins, we hope for the best, but there's a very good chance that this also could happen.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. I think there's a, go ahead, please.
I was just going to ask if there were any other questions.
There's,
There are quite a few, yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say the Whitney question keeps coming up in regards to how it works with Whitney. So I know you mentioned already, but maybe you can mention again that Whitney's not part of the process.
Yes, Whitney is not part of the school of choice process. It actually won't be an option for you to select in when you're selecting schools. They have a completely separate process. I also want to mention that Whitney is specifically for ABC Unified School District residents, and there is they do a series of testing. So there's an application process, an admission process for Whitney that is completely separate to schools of choice.
If you are interested in Whitney and your student is in 6th grade, possibly 8th grade or 6th grade beyond, you should be speaking with your student's teacher regarding this to see if your student is a candidate. And as Angelica, Ms. Diaz-Naranjo shared, grades and assessments and writing assessments are all part of the entrance into being accepted into Whitney. It's a much different process.
Yes, I highly recommend that you contact your current school where your child is attending to request information with regards to that process, and they can assist you.
Terrific. And again, if you could refresh everybody's memory as to when you need an inter-district permit.
So you need an inter-district permit if you are applying as a new student to our district. You would need to request an inter-district permit with your district of residence. You also need to update or renew your permit at every transition. So from elementary to middle and from middle to high school. That is when ABC Unified School District requires it. However, you do want to check with your district of residence because they may have different policies. We do have neighboring districts that are a little bit more stringent in their process, and they require renewal more often. So it really depends on your district of residence and their release.
I'm trying to keep up here with questions. Feel free to jump in at any time.
We are also going to be taking all these questions and then filtering through and doing a Q&A that we will post on the website. So in case we don't get to all of the questions tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. I want to let you know that we currently already have a frequently asked questions on our website. There is already a document there that could help answer any of the questions that you have. So just make sure that you review that information if things come up after today's meeting as well.
I would like to respond to a question, and it says, if one does get picked and the other doesn't, so this may be referencing twins, but not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to be twins. This could be siblings. So if one gets picked and one doesn't, can we choose not to go to the school of choice? Are we locked in? No, you're not locked in. So I think as Ms. Naranjo had shared, you have 48 hours to make that acceptance or denial of what you've been offered. So that's your first opportunity. If both of your children get in and you accept, you're fine. If only one gets in and one doesn't, after 48 hours, if you haven't accepted or denied, you will be removed and the next person will be moved up to your spot. So it's going to be extremely important that you do make that acceptance or denial. However, if you deny that spot and the other one gets in, you're going to be in hard pressed to get the one that was originally in back in. So I know this is a very, it can be very nerve wracking for parents to make those decisions, but it is your decision. So absolutely not. You're never locked in. You can always go back to your school of residence. All the way up through the summer, we allow parents to make that decision to return to their school of residence if things don't work out for them to move into the school of choice.
One more frequently asked questions is for students who are in special ed. They're asking if it's a separate process or different process.
It's the same process. I believe in the application, you will also be asked if there is an IEP. And if you are applying through an inter-district permit, so outside of the district, then we encourage that you include a copy of the IEP with your application. There will be a section where you are able to upload these documents. If you are a current ABC resident, then we have that information in our files, so you wouldn't have to do that. But there will be a question in the application asking if your child is receiving IEP services.
Thank you. Ms. Ortiz, there are a lot of questions about when these virtual school tours will be held.
You know, they're available on our website. The different tours are available on our website. And the Magnet Fair was last week. And in the Magnet Fair, they shared links to them. They're posted because they are virtual. You can still go into those tours even after the fact. So please, I would like to direct you to our school website where you can look at our schools and select a link into the virtual tour of the school that have been recorded. There was a question here that I wanted to answer. Said the question is not specifically about school of choice, but does ABC School District offer an after-school program? My child will begin kindergarten in the fall of 2022. And we've had a couple questions about childcare. The answer is yes, we do have after-school childcare program, and some of our sites have before-school childcare as well. We are expanding our program for next year. So we are hoping to be able to offer even more services after school for our students. So you may want to check with your school, but there will be even more sites available with after school program for the upcoming school year.
And Ms. Ortiz, to clarify, what are the age ranges for transitional kindergarten?
Thank you. So transitional kindergarten for the upcoming year, the student needs to be 5 years old between the months of September 2nd and February 2nd. So if your child will turn 5, September 2nd, 2022, between that and February 2nd, 2023, then they are within the window of time for the student to qualify for transitional kindergarten program. If your child is 5 years old by September 1st, they would qualify for kindergarten.
Thank you. Ms. Romero, I don't know if you see any other frequently asked questions. I'm trying to go through and group them together.
I think you've covered most of our common ones. A lot of them are just repeats about the rankings and what ranking they would be. And then just the TK question just keeps coming up quite a few more times of if they're in TK, do they have to apply for schools of choice and for a permit, which you guys have answered. And we just have a lot of repeats. So we're typing as fast as we can. So Please bear with us.
Doing a great job. Let me see here. I think there are some scenarios in here that we could probably throw out there that might help others. We're currently on an inter-district permit from Cyprus for 6th grade. As an incoming 7th grade, should we enroll in our home school first, then apply for school of choice and wait to see if we get accepted or not from ABC?
So this is a current 6th grader that is in our district on a permit. So they are a continuing student. They're just transitioning from elementary to middle school.
Correct.
We encourage you to definitely apply for our schools of choice during the application window. I can reassure you that you will, with your district of residence, you will always have a spot available to you in your home school. So that's never going to be a concern. But we do encourage you to apply, renew your permit with Cyprus, and submit your application through our school of choice. Because your child is a continuing student, they are at a higher priority. And so there is a good chance that you will get your school of choice or one of them. So I do encourage you to apply.
And what happens if a family moves to a new neighborhood within the district? Can they continue going to their original home school, or will they have to apply to school of choice to go?
So if they move to a new area and they're designated a new home school,
Correct.
yes, so you are encouraged to apply for schools of choice, so that if you would like to remain at the school where your child is currently attending.
There's a question let's see here. There's a question here about if a family moves into the ABC school district, Unified School District before fall, is their child guaranteed a spot in their assigned home school?
Absolutely. That is always your right. You will have a space available to you in your home school.
And what is the notification for someone who is waitlisted, for a family with a student who is waitlisted?
So
How are they contacted?
you will receive an email notification letting you know that you've been waitlisted. I believe you will also know where you fall in the wait list. So you'll have a good idea of how far you are on that wait list or how close you are. I believe you also just need to make sure that you're logging in to your school of choice account and you're checking that information as well. You're doing both. You're checking your email for any notifications, and you're also logging in to check your waitlist status if you are waitlisted.
Angelica, there's a question regarding an intra-district permit for middle and high school students and whether childcare consideration is taken into consideration for those age groups.
So we do not. For an intra-district, not for secondary schools. Childcare is only considered for elementary age. For secondary, we look at, and I can go to it, it is a medical or a social adjustment, and there needs to be documentation submitted for those requests. If it is childcare for elementary age students, there are forms that have to be submitted on our website. Under child welfare and attendance, you will find these forms. You would just need to submit them with your application.
Angelica, so I see a few people asking again about when the link will be posted for school of choice. When is the application going to be on our website, as well as questions about the lottery. Is it multiple lotteries? Is it one lottery?
Okay, thank you. So the application window opens March 1st. And that is when the link is going to be open. You can, if you go to our ABCUSD website and you search schools of choice, you will find it's labeled apply here. If you click on that link, it'll redirect you to Smart Choice, which is the software that we use for our lottery. It is separate to our registration software, Aries, which many of you might be aware of if you are current parents of students who attend our district. But with Smart Choice, the application is currently closed. So if you try to create an account right now, it's going to inform you that the application window is currently not open. And so you do have to wait until March 1st. Again, like Ms. Ortiz mentioned, it doesn't matter when you apply. If you apply midnight on March 1st, or if you apply on March 31st, it does not matter. We will run the lottery live on April 26th. That'll be when we will have another webinar like this, and we will go through running the lottery so that it is visible for all of our community and our families to see. And there's one lottery that runs. We run it once, and then from then on, you begin to receive notifications. If you are waitlisted, it just depends on when students are accepting or not accepting. And as spots become available, dependent on students that are accepting their different choices, spots become available. And so you may get pulled from the wait list depending on open spaces. So it's just a process that we go throughout the month of May when you're receiving those notifications or not, depending on open spaces. But the lottery is only run once.
All right. And if students want to leave Whitney and apply to their home school or go to their home school, do they need to go through the school of choice process for that?
No. So if you choose to no longer attend Whitney High School, you need to make sure that you communicate that with Whitney High School administrators. It is my understanding, based off of board policy, that when you are admitted to Whitney, that becomes your home school. And so communication with Whitney administration with regards to transferring over to your home school, you would need to communicate with them with regards to that process. But you would not have to go through schools of choice for that.
And how does a family find out what their home school is?
So if you go to the ABC Unified School District website, there is a link where you are able to type in your address of residence, and it will show you your home school for all grade levels, elementary, middle, and high school.
Thank you. Now, here's what I've never seen. If a parent is there any different weighting in the lottery if a parent is an adult school student?
So can you repeat that again?
If the parent, and Ms. Ortiz, this might be, I don't know if you've ever heard this one either.
No, but that is in the ranking. It's not part of our lottery process.
No.
So you would be applying based on your location where you live, inside or outside of the district, and if you have any other students in the school district and where they're at.
I have heard a similar question. I've received one where if the parent is a student or works at Cerritos College, where would they fall in the ranking? And that also doesn't apply. This is specific to ABC Unified employees.
Thank you.
There's a question here. I think it may need to be elaborated a little bit, but it says my daughter is in inter-district schools of choice going to apply for kindergarten, but her sibling is currently residing in ABC district attending Cerritos Elementary. What ranking will she fall under? So I think this, I think we may need to know more information, but it's based on the parents' not the student's residence or the
Right.
guardian, I should say.
Mhm. So it is dependent on the parent's address. If there is a sibling and you're on an inter-district permit, then we're looking at ranking number 5, sibling applicants of students who will continue attending the school in which the applicant is applying. So that would be the ranking if we're going based off of sibling applicant and attending the same school that the current student is attending.
I have a question here. Can you please clarify, was it stated that school of choice is already open for TK? And do I apply for that through ABC district website? So TK is not part of the school of choice process. But the good news is, yes, you can apply if you're out or inside the district. If you're inside the district, you definitely want to get your child registered. If you're outside of the district and you would like to come to ABC for TK, you may also do that. And we are accepting the applications right now. We're pre-enrolling our students. So in either scenario, you just go to our district website under TK enrollment and you start your enrollment process. And you will be placed from district office out to the schools. So if you are within the district and you're enrolling for TK, you will be placed at your resident school or the feeder school for the TK classes from that school. If you're outside the district, we first place all of our students within the district, and then we begin placement of our inter-district TK students.
So I want to make sure that I thank everyone for being with us tonight, for asking your questions. We do appreciate you being here this evening. We can stay on for a few more minutes to continue answering questions, but we want to thank you for joining us this evening. And again, make sure that you check out our website for more information. And if you have any questions and you don't find the answers on the website, you can definitely call Child Welfare and Attendance and we'll gladly assist you. Thank you again.
As well, if you're within the school district at this time and your students are in schools, many of your principals will be able to help respond to those questions. And you will be receiving information if you're within the district regarding reminders about school of choice opening and closing and all that good stuff. So again, there's many people that are knowledgeable that can help support and answer those questions for you. And as Ms. Diaz-Naranjo said, and her whole team, that they will keep that FAQ up to date for you. So we encourage you to check that frequently if your question hasn't been answered yet. And we wish you all good luck in the lottery. We hope that you all make it in to your school of choice.
If you'd like to answer a couple more questions, we can, if you'd like to continue.
We can for a few more minutes, sure. And I'll continue recording as well.
Let's just do a couple of quick ones that I've seen that we always hear too, is how do I enroll at my home school?
So enrollment at your home school, you would go through reaching out to your home school, and they can definitely assist you with that. I believe that registration for the next school year more than likely will be opening in the next few weeks. I'm thinking, Melinda, if I'm correct, registrations for the 22-23 school year for ABC for current students.
Yeah, typically the schools will start enrolling in March.
Mhm.
So you'll start right around the time that we start the school of choice process. That's when the schools will begin their enrollment for resident students. And March, April is the typical time frame for most of our schools.
So just check in with your home school for more information. And I'm sure they're going to also be sending notifications to their families as well.
And this presentation will be available online?
Absolutely. We will be posting the recording online on our website.
And again, what schools are not part of the school of choice program?
So Whitney High School, Tracy Continuation School, and our transitional kindergarten program. Those are not part of our school of choice.
If you're moving from your home school at one level, going to your next level, like elementary to middle school, you do not need to apply for school of choice. Is that correct?
No, that is correct. If you're going to continue on to your home middle school, then you wouldn't need to apply for school of choice. If you're opting, let's say you're interested in a magnet program at another school, then you would need to go through school of choice, because you're requesting another school rather than your home school, your designated home school.
Looking back through to see. I'll ask the team to see if they see anything as well.
Mr. Smith, another common question that's come up is people want to know how they can find out what their home school is if they reside within ABC.
So if you go on the ABC Unified School District website, there is a section where you can enter your address, and it'll notify you of your home school. If you live within the ABC Unified School District, it'll let you know your elementary school, your middle school, and your high school. It'll also notify you if your address is out of the district. It'll let you know that the address cannot be found. So there is a section where you can search this information. I believe it is under the schools tab on the website.
It is. It's called School Search under the Schools tab, where you can go down to the first icon menu bar, and there's a little icon that says School Search, and you can find it there as well.
This is a good question. And I haven't been asked this one before, but let me respond to that. Is availability dynamic? If a student who lives in ABC accepts a school of choice position at their non-home school, does a spot open up at the home school? Not a school of choice spot. So if a child accepts, a parent accepts a school of choice at another school during the lottery, we're required to post the openings prior to school of choice starting. So we cannot then go ahead and create more positions as the lottery is happening. So technically it would create an opening and that now there's a new space available, but it is not a school of choice space. Here's a question. If my childcare lives in ABC, this is often a question as well. How does that affect, if my childcare is in ABC, does this affect my ranking? Unfortunately, childcare is not ranking a reason for a ranking in our lottery process. So I do apologize to that person that asked that question, but we understand, but that's not part of our decision process with our rankings here.
Well, staying on that topic of ranking, does a student's GPA make any difference in the ranking in the application process?
No, it does not. We do not take into account academic performance or athletics. That is, we do not take that into account, no.
This was another good question. If I get into school in kindergarten and later move to another city, how do we work then? You would be required at any time, and this is for any grade. It doesn't matter what grade your child's in. If you move out of the district attendance area, you are absolutely required to apply for a interdistrict permit in the school of residence, the new residence, in order for us to allow you to even attend or remain in the schools. So we would work with you to, give you time to get that taken care of, but we have to have a permit on file if you are not living in the ABC Unified School District. It's mandatory. A lot of questions about when Carmenita's meeting is. If you please look at their school website, we do have 29 schools, and right now I don't have in front of me a list of all of their different meetings, but you can go to the school website. You can go through our district website and select schools and choose the school that you want to look at. Typically, they will have their calendar up of events that are coming up at the school site. So if they're offering their parent meeting at a certain time, you will typically find that on the website. If it's not located there and you don't see it on our district website under the schools of choice or the magnet schools option for virtual tours, then just call the school and they'll let you know.
Again, I want to thank everyone for joining us. This is the conclusion of our meeting. So thank you everyone for being here this evening.